Hi, today we're going to do law of cosines. So you use law of cosines when you have a triangle that is not a right triangle and you're trying to find side and angles. Now, always try law of sines first. Law of sines is super easy, it's fast, and you only use law of cosines if law of sines doesn't work. So now on your theorem sheet, they're going to give you all of they're going to give you just this one equation, but really all three work. Just depends on if you're finding side C, side B, or side A. Depends on which formula you want to use. Now, if you look at all three formulas, it's really easy to memorize to go from one formula to another. For instance, this formula down here, it looks a lot like Pythagorean theorem. It honestly does. Or, even the first one. So just try to adapt them. It doesn't take much work to memorize them, and it'll help you. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and move along. I was having trouble writing with my stylus. It wasn't going well, so I just wrote it out on paper and inserted it. So we'll see how this goes. So I read you the picture. The directions said to find all the missing side and angles. So again, if it's not a right triangle, I always start with law of sines. So I wrote it all out right here. So the problem is I have angles and sides missing. I have something missing on every ratio, so I'm not able to cross multiply and solve. So that's why we have to then go to law of cosines. So we can find one more little piece, plug it into law of sines, and then get law of sines to work. So the only side we're missing is side B, which is the same thing as side AC. Little b is what I'm referencing. So I'm going to use this formula that was on the first slide. B squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2ac times cosine of angle B. Okay, so we're going to grab these numbers right off the picture. We don't know side B, so that's unknown. Side A is opposite angle A, so it's 74, and I square it. And then side C is 33. Now, guys, there's a bracket here. Everyone sees the bracket. So that means I have to multiply those together and get that number. Okay? So go ahead and do that. Double check me, 65, 65. So then I'm going to do 2 times AC. So 2 times 74 times 33. Again, this is in its own little bracket. Multiply it all together. Double check me, 4884. Cosine of angle B, and angle B is 15. Now, this is where if you're going to mess up, you're going to mess up. Everyone, every single year, wants to subtract those 4-digit numbers. Your brain's lying to you. Do not do it. Okay, now you have to play around with your calculator. Every calculator is a little different, but the end result needs to be this big number, 1,847.418, on and on. Keep working until you get that number. Okay, do not take 6565 minus 4884 and then times it by cosine 15. You're going to get the wrong number. Okay. Back in the day when calculators were more difficult to use, and some of yours might be this way, I had to take 4 times cosine 15 and then write down that entire big number and then take 6565 and then minus that number that I wrote down. Or if you're good with brackets, okay, brackets are a good thing, take 6565 minus and then use a bracket for or parenthesis 4 times cosine 15, close the bracket, push enter. Hopefully you get 1,847.4. Okay, so you really don't want to have to keep writing out these big numbers. So if you can find the A and S button, it's normally at the bottom of the calculator, maybe next to the decimal or underneath the negative sign. It's going to be a really good trick for you just to say, find the square root and then put in the A and S button and it pops in your previous answer. So there's no need to type in that huge number. So take the square root of that huge number, 1847.418, on and on. And you get this big number. Now, it's normal rounding to the tenths place for sides. That means one decimal. But if you're rounding to one decimal, the 8 rounds up the 9, which rounds up the 2. So it's a ripple effect. You get the answer 43. Okay, so now I go back to law of sides. And as you can see, I put in the 43 right here. Now you have enough to cross multiply and solve like you did on the previous night's work. Now, hint, we could have an ambiguous case. You'll get into this when you're in pre-calc, but for now, just understand you need to find the acute angles first. Okay? If not, it's all going to be a big mess, and your calculator is going to lie and not give you the obtuse measurement. It's going to give you an acute measurement, which is actually 180 minus the answer you need. So just go with me. You want to find the acute angle first. So I'm not going to find angle A, because let's go back and look at the picture. Angle A definitely is obtuse looking. So let's go with angle C. So this is review from last class. I'm going to cross multiply these. Remember what's in the denominator down here goes first. So it's 33 sine 15. And then cross multiply 43 sine C. Divide both sides by 43. Now you're left with sine C. Now, if you're finding the angle, you have to do the inverse. Okay? You have to do the inverse. Now, here's a good hint. After you take all of this and you type into your calculator, you'll get that answer of 0.1986. If you rounded that to the nearest degree, that's 0. And hopefully you're saying to yourself, that doesn't make sense that my degree is 0. And that's because you still need to take the inverse of it. So again, let's use this A and S button. Now you're going to do the inverse of sine. So that means you push the second button and then sine. And then you have to find the A and S button or type in that huge decimal and hit enter. And we're rounding off to the nearest degree, which would be 11. Okay, so now we know 2 angles. To find the third angle, all you have to do is subtract from 180. 180 minus 11 minus 15 is 154. So this is how you find all the missing information when it's not a right triangle. If it's a right triangle, we use SOHCAHTOA. Okay, one more. There's only 2 examples. Now this one I gave you all the side measurements, but you're going to find the angles. Now, I realize I wrote in one of the angles, but that's down on the page. Don't get ahead of me. Now, find the acute angles first. So that means I'm not going to find angle A. I have to find either B or C. It's a judgment call. I just chose B just because I wanted to. If you wanted to, you could find C first. Now, this one gets tricky and you have to really watch. So side B is the 50. So I plug that in. A and C, A is 66, C is 39. They're squared. And then 2 times A times C. So 2 times 66 times 39 cosine B. All right, guys, now let's be real. This huge equation, you're solving for the angle this time. And the angle's at the very end. So we have to eliminate everything else, like Algebra 1, move everything over to the other side. So the first step is to simplify. 50 squared is 2,500. Next little parenthesis, 5877. Double check me on this, guys. Next little parenthesis, and negative 5148. And then you drop it down, cosine B. Your brain's, again, going to lie to you. And it's going to say, subtract those 4-digit numbers. But you're going to resist that because you know your brain's lying to you, and you're not going to do that. You're going to subtract the 5877 over to the other side. And yes, it makes it negative, but that's okay. And then you're solving, oops, And then you're solving for cosine B right here. So you need to get rid of the negative 51/48. So that means you're dividing it away to that side. I don't know why I crossed that out. So with your calculator, take negative 33/77 divided by negative 51/48. Or if you understand two negatives make a positive, you don't have to worry about the negatives. And you should get this big decimal. So work on it, see if you can get that decimal. And again, you're rounding to the nearest degree. Does it make sense that it's 1 degree? Hopefully that is your clue to say that doesn't really make sense. So, your reminder, you have to take the inverse of it. Now it's of cosine this time, so hit inverse, cosine, and if you can find the A and S button, push A and S, and you should get 49 degrees. Okay, now let's use law of sines again. Let's plug everything in. Now remember, find the acute angles first, so that means I'm not finding A. So I'm going to find angle C next. Cross multiply. Remember, the denominator goes first. So 50 times cosine C and 39 times cosine 49. And if I'm solving for sine C, that means I'm dividing both sides by 50. So, guys, here's where you grab your calculator. See if you can get that big number, 0.58867. Now, again, it's to the nearest degree. It doesn't make sense. It's 1 degree. It's your little hint to, oh, I forgot to inverse sine it. So take the inverse sine of the previous answer, and you should get 36 degrees. Now, to get your last one, just simply subtracting from 180, and you get 95 degrees. So I know learning like this is weird, and technology on my end is not the best. My computer's not, my stylus aren't working. So don't be at home and don't stay frustrated. Reach out, ask questions, write your work out, because I'm going to ask to see your work, and I can't help if I can't see what you're doing incorrectly. All right, guys, we can do this. I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.